Can everyone hear me okay?
All good here.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's industry panel with guests joining us from prestigious national organisations to share their insights with us on graduate recruitment. I'd also like to especially welcome all of our students, academics and staff who are joining us online today from Torrens University, Australia. My name is Mustafa Kadir and I'm the industry consultant here at Torrens University, looking after the business faculty. Before I start, I want to do a bit of housekeeping. Can you please make sure your video and mic are turned off? We want to make sure only our industry panels videos are on. So I can see a guest that's got a video on. If we can kindly request all videos to be turned off and mics, with the exception of our industry panel. Now, before I begin, I'd like to sort of acknowledge that a lot has happened in the last 4 or 5 months in the wake of COVID-19, as I'm sure we're all aware. So we've invited industry leaders who are leaders in graduate recruitment to talk to us about how the current pandemic has affected the way that multinational firms are operating and how they are managing during the crisis, with a special focus on graduate recruitment. More importantly, we'll talk about the way forward as businesses start to evolve and adapt to a new normal. I'm delighted to be joined by a special panel today. With us today, we have 3 industry guests. You'll see, I'm not sure if the frames are in the same order for you, so I'm not going to guess. But we have with us today Amber Coppins, who's wearing the striped, looks like a striped jumper. There we go, she's waving. Amber Coppins, who's from Adelaide. She's a senior talent consultant at Deloitte, Australia. We've also got with us Cassie Wijnhoud. I hope I've pronounced the surname right, Cassie.
You're doing a great job. Yeah.
Okay, good. So she's a people and culture consultant at RSM Australia, another prestigious organisation. And we've also got finally Darien Canepa, careers engagement manager at Chartered Accountants. There we go. We've got the wave from him as well. Fantastic. Now, I'll begin by introducing each speaker, and I'll also ask them to give us an organisational insight, perhaps a few words to give us an intro about their firm, whether it's national, what service lines they have, what the culture's like, and more importantly, recent changes that they've had to adapt to due to COVID-19, for example, working from home. First, let me begin by introducing the wonderful Amber Coppins. I've had the privilege of sitting on a number of roundtables, graduate employer roundtables with Amber. So I know her very well. She's just a wonderful person, and I've been absolutely looking forward to bringing Amber into Torrens University to present for us. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we have had to sort of make it online. But the good news is it now means that all of our students from across Australia are able to join in and hear from you, Amber. So I'm absolutely delighted. So Amber has over 7 years of experience in talent acquisition and also talent management. In the past, Amber has worked for Woolworths Group, Terrington Consulting and People's Choice Credit Union, again, prestigious organisations. In her role with Deloitte, Amber supports 6 offices across South Australia, Northern Territory and Tasmania. I don't know how you do it, Amber, but great job. And she focuses on talent development, performance management, inclusion, diversity, and well-being. Amber, I'm going to start with you. Not that we need an introduction about Deloitte, but can you please tell us a little bit about Deloitte and what areas you provide service in, but more importantly, a bit about the recent changes due to COVID-19. Over to you, Amber.
What a fantastic introduction. Thank you. I was smiling like that whole time. Really talked me up. One of my priorities in my role is still with our graduate recruitment and, attracting our future talent. So that's where I've, had the privilege of meeting you as well, particularly as we've been in Adelaide doing different assessment centres. But I have been in my role with Deloitte for almost 3 years now, and it is quite a generalist HR role. So day to day is very different. I support all of our business units, our partners and our leaders with their HR function. So it might be offering advice, could be conflict resolution, training needs analysis to see what different training we might need to roll out to develop our people. And then, of course, with HR, there's a lot of occupational health and safety, which is where COVID, the last few months has been a huge focus and priority to ensure that all of our staff are safe and well. And then also with the inclusion, diversity and wellbeing strategy that Deloitte has, I support that as well with the business. So lots of different programs and initiatives. In terms of Deloitte, there might be some of you on the call that don't know who Deloitte are or what we do, because I didn't know too much myself before I worked here. It is a global professional services firm. So globally, we have over 250,000 employees. But here in Australia, that's about just under 10,000 employees across all states in Australia. And the business units that we have are financial advisory. So we have M&A, we've got real estate, we've got a risk advisory business unit. So that focuses on cyber security and technology risk. We also have our audit and assurance business, which is where we hire a lot of our finance and commerce grads. And then we also have a tax and legal business unit. So it's not just tax returns, it's also providing legal and tax advice as well when businesses are making decisions. And then lastly, our fifth business unit is consulting. So that could be any new or innovative solution that we're working with clients to implement. And as in the intro, you did mention COVID has impacted our business in many ways. One, as you can see, I'm working at home. I've been working at home for about 14 weeks now, and most of our staff are encouraged to still work from home. Even now that the risk in some states is a lot lower, we can do our roles from home, switching on our videos and just trying to connect with each other virtually in different ways. And we've still been doing our grad recruitment. So we've just been doing virtual interviews, whereas before we would do in-person assessment centres. So it's probably changed the process to how we've been recruiting, but it hasn't necessarily changed the outcome. We are still recruiting and employing people for our grad program.
Fantastic, Amber. And can I ask roughly what's the number of staff across Australia?
Yeah, just under 10,000 nationally.
Fantastic.
So the group that I look after is about 500.
Fantastic. And how many grads do you take on nationally every year? Just a rough figure.
This year we've employed 1,000 in Australia.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Now I want to move on to Cassie. Now we will have a QA session. So this is just a brief intro about the speakers, and then before we move into the QA session, and just to get a bit of an organisational background. Now I'm going to move on to Cassie Wijnhoud. Cassie is a people and culture consultant at RSM Australia. She's joining us all the way from WA. Fantastic to have you here, Cassie. Cassie is an experienced and passionate human resource professional with a proven track record in employment relations. I did check out your profile on LinkedIn, so I can definitely vouch for that, Cassie. She's also pragmatically coaching managers on best practice, training and development strategies, HR policies and initiatives, while also building relationships with all levels of management, as HR does. Cassie, tell us a bit more about RSM, how many offices there are across Australia, particularly in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, and recent changes due to COVID-19. And perhaps, obviously, being a people and culture consultant, tell us a bit about the culture at RSM.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the intro. I hope you can all hear me okay as well. I'm just I'm going without a headset, so we'll see how it goes. So yeah, RSM is a professional services and accounting firm, much like how Amber described Deloitte, except we're a mid-tier firm. So we're slightly smaller in size. So we are also international. We have 43,000 people across the globe. In Australia, we have about 1,200, and that's spread over the country. As you mentioned earlier, I'm based in Perth. So I, as part of my role, look after the National Graduate Strategy and National Graduate Program. Hence why I'm here today. So it's cool to get to chat to some people from Adelaide as well. We have, also a variety of service lines. Again, much the same as how Amber described. I think ours are a bit more broken up. So we have assurance and advisory as well. So we take a lot of grads there too. Business advisory, risk, tax, corporate finance, restructuring and recovery. So like insolvency, financial service, and also risk consulting. I guess from a graduate perspective, we tend to take grads into a majority of our divisions. Definitely take a lot more into the likes of BA, business advisory, and assurance and advisory. But yeah, in terms of our grad program, it is national. We take them in every office. And I guess for context, last year our grad cohort, so those grads that are with us now in 2020, and we had 110 as a part of that. Grad recruitment, I guess, in this current environment, yes, it was very different and it came quite quickly, but we were able to still proceed. Obviously, the emphasis on building our pipeline and the future talent and the future workforce still remains as important as ever. And we just managed this all virtually. So we didn't hold any assessment centres. This was all done online via meetings much like what we're doing at the moment. And yeah, we've still been able to get a really great a group of grads on board. We also, I guess, the difference with COVID and grad recruitment this year is we anticipate, and we're still in the process of going through a bit of grad recruitment, and it will be a bit of a rolling approach throughout the rest of the year. So I guess that's positive news for everyone listening, as there'll be continuous opportunities. So yeah, hopefully that's answered some of your questions. That's my little wrap up done.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So what's the forecast for this year in terms of grads? What are the numbers looking like for RSM?
Yeah, sure. So we typically run our normal graduate campaign around March to April. For context, last year, so pre-COVID, we initially took on 58 grads. This year we have actually done exactly the same number, which was strangely odd. However, as I mentioned earlier, our cohort ended up being 110. So that just, I guess, shows you that we continue to take grads on throughout the year, and we anticipate that this year would be much the same. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cassie. And now to our third panelist, a good friend, Darien Canepa, also based out of Adelaide. Darien is the Careers Engagement Manager at Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand. He's very passionate about young and future graduates, as he's he really enjoys mentoring them. But Darien also enjoys connecting with students from different disciplines to help them unlock their potential and expand their career opportunities. I've certainly seen a lot of students that have benefited from Darien's expertise and mentorship. And in his current role as a careers engagement manager, he gets to meet students from all walks of life, and loves getting students involved in various initiatives of CA, including the CA Achiever program, a number of career expos, which I know has been impacted by COVID-19, but will hopefully resume in Adelaide soon, and CA Student Affiliate Program. Darien, I'm really happy to have you on board today. I cannot emphasize how important it is for students to become accredited as CA, but tell us the important role that CA plays in industry. We'd also love to hear about the overall accounting industry and how they're managing during the COVID-19, particularly with recruitment. Because I mean, we know, I know Amber and Cassie are here, but Darien, you've got a much wider reach to industry, including small business. So tell us about how industry is coping.
Thanks, Mustafa, and thanks for having me in this panel this afternoon. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Darien, and I'm the Careers Engagement Manager at Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. And yes, no doubt it's been a different kind of year. We throughout the year organize a number of initiatives where we love to get you guys involved, because we think that you get a lot of benefit out of developing your networks and also engaging with different industry professionals, people in HR, and people like Amber and Cassie that we have on the panel today. We're so lucky to have them both, so they can give us a little bit of an insight as to what's happening within their organizations. As to An overview about the accounting industry and the recruitment space from other organizations here in Adelaide. It's been a little bit of a mixed bag actually, because some organizations have decided to put a little bit of a freeze on their recruitment. Some other ones have thought that, oh, well, this might be an opportunity to continue recruiting, because given that other organizations have put a little bit of a hold on their initiatives, then they might be able to get access to a better pool of candidates, perhaps. So, but all in all, I think that no matter what kind of state the economy is, and what kind of a state the country is at the moment, I think students should continue trying to get a hold of some of these opportunities, because it is challenging times, no doubt about it. But this is not going to be the first or the last challenges that life throws at us. So this is just one of them, perhaps, and we need to embrace the challenge, adapt to the new normal, and keep going, because life goes on, and we need to continue, finding opportunities, finding different ways of engaging with people, and to continue developing our networks.
Fantastic. And I can see you're working from home, Darien.
Yes, I am working from home as well.
You don't have any pets in the background?
No, I left the pet outside.
Okay, good.
Left the dog outside.
Okay, now that we've had a brilliant introduction by each speaker around their organisation and how they've sort of been managing during COVID-19, I'd like to now turn to a QA session with the panel, which I'm really looking forward to. We've got a number of questions prepared, and we will go to the audience as well. So if you do have, so from the audience, if you have questions, please type it in the chat box, and we'll get to it. I mean, I've got quite a few questions prepared myself here. So I'd like to start perhaps with Amber. In recent times, we've seen lots of Zoom meetings. How are your teams embracing these sudden changes? And are your graduates working from home?
Yes, so majority of our staff in Australia, I think we ended up getting about 90% of staff in Australia working from home. And that does include our 1,000 graduates that started, most of them only started in March. So they went pretty much straight into working from home. So we have had to think about how we do connect virtually, and how we actually have more regular check-ins with them than we would be, if we were in the office. You can normally just turn around and check that they're okay. So that was through coaching, their managers and the partners to have more regular team connections, one-on-ones and phone calls. And we learnt pretty soon that Zoom fatigue is definitely a thing, and having your video on all day is definitely not recommended. So now when we do have one-on-one calls or team connection calls, we try to just do that over phone and turn our videos off, maybe go for a walk or sit outside, sit in a different room. Otherwise you can get stuck, with your video on all day, and by the end of the day it's quite draining. So we've just had to think and get a bit more creative along the way. As I mentioned, it's probably week 14 now, so I think everyone's kind of got a good routine working from home and know which meetings they can join, with video on. And also I think how to present virtually. So if you've got an idea, like how to speak up, I think some of the graduates have actually learnt some really good, ways that they can put their ideas forward in virtual meetings instead.
That's fantastic to hear, and I think it also highlights the importance of staying connected in an environment where you've got health and well-being, which is really becoming a focus now. And I'm sort of going to go to Cassie now. With this, how important, like from a cultural perspective, how important is it to stay connected? But more importantly, how do you sort of ensure the well-being of your staff?
Yeah, sure. I guess. I think it's easy to take for granted how much FaceTime can impact an employee experience and impact someone's, I guess, like you mentioned, just their overall well-being and how happy they are and how engaged they are. It's essential in the likes of things like staff engagement. Even as you mentioned, to Amber, we've had a whole bunch of staff commence just before this whole kind of COVID wave hit. So the emphasis on staying connected during that stage was even of more importance than it would usually otherwise be. You've got, imagine your first day in the office, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but awkward for a couple of weeks. We won't beat around the bush. However, doing that from your home and not being able to engage or know how to ask questions and things like that, it can really have an impact on someone's onboarding. And I mean, we're taking people on board with the intention that we'll be able to invest in their long-term career, and so we want that to remain the case. So I'd say, the emphasis on staying connected during that period of time, particularly for our grads, it was really important, and we made it a primary focus.
That's fantastic to hear, and it is really important across, I think, all industries to really watch out also for burnout, as it can happen. And I mean, in a normal office environment, I mean, it's kind of there's telltale signs, but in a virtual world, you've got absolutely no access, and so and it's very hard to sort of pick up the signals and the body language. So it's really important to see organisations such as RSM and even Deloitte and Chartered Accountants placing emphasis on well-being. And we at Torrens University as well, I must say that there is a big focus on health and well-being here as well, which I'm really proud of. Amber, actually, no, before I go to Amber, Cassie, while I've got you there, can you tell us a bit about your graduate program? Because I know we've touched on it briefly. What does it look like? I know you said sort of it runs, in March, April. Do you have another sort of session, let's say, in July, August, or September? And what advice can you give to those who are looking to pursue those graduate programs?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you, I guess, a bit of an overview of the National Grad Program. So as I mentioned earlier, we typically do our hiring earlier in the year. So I guess the initial stages of the recruitment phase will kick off around Feb, goes through to about March and April, and that's our main campaign. The difference that we have, I guess because it's national, is we manage it over the East Coast and the West Coast, and they both do it slightly differently. So, for example, in WA, we actually have our vacation recruitment at the same time as our grad recruitment in the months of March and April, whereas the East Coast will have their vacation recruitment coming up later in the year around August and September, and they'll look to take in over the December break, and then the year following the mid-semester break as well. So yeah, that's a primary piece of recruitment. However, as I mentioned too, rolling recruitment is definitely a thing. We call it grad top up, bit of a, I guess, some jargon, the top up that we all kind of, you never almost can prepare to do, because there's always the needs of the business change. In terms of, I guess, some of the structure of our grad program, so we recruit the year before for grads to come in the year following. So that's, I guess, the easiest way to understand the cohorts. At the moment, we're recruiting for our 2021 cohorts that will commence February next year. What we found, and I guess that's something that we can maybe touch on further, is we've been taking a lot of our grads, or despite their commencement date starting, say, next year, because of the needs of the business and the way that it's forever changing, and we're able to take a lot of our grads on casually or part-time prior to their graduate commencement. So I think that's something exciting, I guess, something to flag too for grads looking for roles, to always pursue those kinds of opportunities. Ask the question, do you have an opportunity for me to come on early? I don't have a class on a Friday. Can I come in? And then I guess from your perspective too, you're kind of then making yourself familiar with the business, you're a bit more comfortable, and then you can jump in full swing when you come on board full time. So yeah, the structure, so you come on Feb, if not before. Part of our induction is a graduate week. So we get together all our graduates nationally in a capital city, which is usually Sydney. And that's basically for a week of professional personal development as well as technical training. So you're able to integrate with grads from across the firm. So it's a really great opportunity. And then thereafter, you obviously go back to your office and you go from there. So I guess the difference with the RSM program, I know in some other firms there's quite a lot of structure over the first 2 years of your employment. You sometimes jump through different divisions and get different exposure. At the moment, the way that the RSM grad program works is we do put a lot of emphasis on the first 6 months in the year, but you tend to stick within the same division. and you're offered a permanent opportunity, obviously, with the normal things like probations and the likes. However, it's a permanent job offer from the get-go.
Fantastic. So they're not changing divisions. They stay in that one department.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And what's the best process for students sort of to apply and to be on the lookout for these programs? Do they just jump onto the RSM website?
Yeah. So on the RSM website, we have a careers page. There's a button on there that you can click for student opportunities. So that's where we promote our grad program. It's also on Seek, Grad Connection, Grad Australia, and the likes. But yeah, at any stage, if you've got questions, you can just reach out to the contact of the website or myself to help. Fantastic,
thank you. Now, Amber, tell us about the Deloitte graduate program, and I also hear you've got a fantastic internship / vacation program. Can you tell us more about that as well?
Yeah, timings actually sound very similar to what Cassie was speaking about her timeline there. So we do have our graduate program, which kicks off in March, but we do that recruitment usually 12 months in advance. So yes, currently we're recruiting for our 2021 program. We've already extended some offers, and we'll continue to do that throughout the year. Sometimes we get towards the end of the year and realise that we want to increase numbers. So we might just hire, August, September even for that following year. And then once it starts in March, we do have a 12-month program of both technical and non-technical training and development. Of course, the biggest learning in their first year is actually the on-the-job training. So we also have them in a certain business unit and service line. We don't usually move them around service lines unless by request. If they're not enjoying the one they're currently in, that sometimes happens in the first year. But apart from that, they do all their training and on-the-job training in a certain team. In that first year, and then they also get invited to lots of training and development to go through that program, and it is also permanent ongoing role after that. And then our vacation program happens in the summer holidays every year. So we have 2 intakes, one before Christmas and one after Christmas. Sometimes it's 4 weeks, sometimes it's 8 weeks. It does just depend on the business unit, and that's where it is a paid internship program. And it's going both ways. So it's for the student to see if we are an employer that they want to work with long term, if they get a permanent offer afterwards. But it's also for us to see how they integrate into the team, what ideas or problem solving they were able to come up with. We can pick up on some of those non-technical skills quite quickly to see if they would be a good fit into the culture.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great way to sort of test out the culture, and it really goes both ways. For both the student and the organisation. With these vacation paid internship programs, when do you advertise them, Amber?
So we advertise both the graduate and vacation vacancies at the same time every year. Yeah. So we start advertising in February at the start of every year. So that this February 2020, we were advertising for the November 2020 vacationer spots and also the March 2021 grad spots. We are about to advertise next week, so we kind of finalised our March recruitment and realised we probably need some more. So next week we are opening up to advertise any remaining vacancies across Australia for a 4-week period. So if you go onto the Deloitte Careers webpage, you'll be able to apply to those.
Brilliant. And just for those for the students that are joining us today, I'll also be making sure that they're up on Careers Connect, so our careers portal. So please do make sure you keep an eye out in case so you don't miss it. Now we do have a really important question that's come from Alicia. Fortunate to hear the success stories. I would like to know about the graduate program for international students or those who don't have a PR or citizenship. Now, I can definitely vouch for a lot of our students who are dedicated, who are talented, that are willing, that are here to stay in Australia. So they don't have an intention to go back, and they're really ambitious to get organized, to basically get into the likes of Deloitte and RSM. But they would love to know, what is the pathway for them? How can they get their foot in the door, so to speak? What's your thoughts, Amber, before I go to Cassie?
So we do still hire international students, but I would say it's a lower number. We definitely get more international applicants than we end up, being able to employ. And I guess it depends on the business unit and service line they're applying to as well. And we do look at their visa type. So it is a check we have to run to see what their visa type is and when it expires. And what we have seen with some students is maybe once they graduate from their degree, they don't go straight into a grad program. They actually do a year's work experience with another firm or company, get a more permanent visa type, and then apply for the graduate program the following year, which they're eligible to apply for 3 years after they graduate. So they don't necessarily need to go straight into a grad program, as soon as they finish their degree. But it's really hard to say because we don't have one rule for everyone. It depends on the business unit and the hiring manager, what they're looking for in a candidate. And sometimes, the international experience is actually, valuable for them, and it's maybe a gap they've got in their team. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. And we've got a comment from Karen in the chat box, who worked with Deloitte in their country. And this is the thing, being an international organization, we can see that, with Deloitte having offices internationally, we've got a lot of students that have worked perhaps in the Deloittes from back home, and they would love to sort of join Deloitte here. I suppose my question is it much different, in terms of culture, in terms of, all the divisions, the departments, the hierarchy, the leadership? Is it much different to how other international offices operate?
I would say culture and values, no, we're very similar, and we have a lot of our programs are actually global. So, for example, our LGBTI group, which we call Globe, is actually a global program. So we often have the same, opportunities for staff, and all the values are aligned. In terms of business units and service lines, some of the other international firms have different names, but we definitely provide the same services. And if someone did work for a Deloitte overseas and then they're applying here in Australia, that would be really valuable to the recruiter to see. Obviously recognise prior experience, and they know what we're all about already. So that would definitely be something, desirable on an application. But I would say the main differences are actually around legislation, procedures and processes. So other firms might have different technology, or they might have different legislation, meaning just the day-to-day work might be a bit different.
Fantastic. Now, Cassie, international students, does RSM support international students perhaps, in both the graduate role but also the vacation program?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So much the same as what Anna mentioned, we do take international students on. I would say they do form a smaller part of the cohort, as working rights and things like that are something that we do have to consider. However, there's no blanket rule. It comes down at the end of the day to the candidate, the fit, whether it's going to be in their best interest and the best interest of the firm, and those are the kinds of things that we consider. I guess for context, we have quite a big secondment program, so that kind of helps shows the firm's appetite for, I guess, looking outside of Australia and the likes, and we definitely again encourage the approach that we just need to find the right people, and that's where the emphasis lies. So yeah, again, and like you mentioned, obviously things like when your visa expires, those kinds of things are all taken into consideration. For example, if you're, toward the final stages and you're almost at PR or things like this, then obviously from a hiring perspective, it's something, the full working rights are just around the corner. And that's typically something that we even support you in. However, I guess if I'm being completely transparent, if you're toward the earlier stages of those kinds of processes, it's typically something that we do have to consider when we're reviewing the application. Yeah.
Fantastic. And look, to the students that have tuned in today, you can't go wrong with doing a vacation program. And this is where you can, it's almost like you can sort of trial the experience before you really put your effort into to sort of join the graduate program. And perhaps by the time you've sort of finished your studies, it may be that you consider joining the graduate program. And so you may already have, your PR, by the time you're about to start your graduate employment. So as you've heard from both Amber and Cassie, you know, they start recruiting this year, but you don't actually start the job until next year, if that makes sense. So you've got 12-month leeway. Now, Darien, I haven't forgotten about you. Why is it important to become a CA? Because in amongst this conversation, there's a pathway. So students obviously go from university to a graduate job, but the education never stops. And in fact, the way I look at it, education is university is a starting point for a lot of accountants. And so why is it important to become a CA? What does it actually mean to be a CA?
Thanks, Mustafa. And I liked what you just mentioned. Education never stops, and in times like this, even less. So be prepared for doing a lot of professional development in the coming years, because I think that's what's going to help you to stay current, stay relevant, and to keep up with the different demands of market changes and all that sort of things. So in terms of the CA program, if I had to sum it up in a few words, the CA program will give you the critical thinking, will help you develop your strong analytical skills, and also will give you some business and commercial knowledge, because throughout the program you will be exposed to real world cases or business cases and real experiences as well. You will be interacting with other members in the profession. The CA office here in Adelaide, I was very surprised when I first joined the team in Adelaide. There's plenty of opportunities to engage, to be in front of other members, to connect with other people in the industry. One thing that I really liked about Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand is that there's different initiatives that are targeted to people that are working in different industries. So, for example, if you're working for in the public practice space, then there will be events that are focused in that area. If you're working in not-for-profits, then there will be initiatives that are targeted to people that are working in that area as well. So as well, for example, once you become, actually, when you start the program, we like to think of you as if you were already one of our members, and we will give you access to things like the Young CA panels, the CA speakers programs, where you will be able to start, putting into practice some of those skills that you will need in the future. So, for example, if you wanted to develop some leadership skills, you could join the Young CA panel, or you could join the CA speakers programs, where you will basically be working with us, or you will be supporting some of the initiatives that we organize throughout the year. Also, the CA designation is not only nationally but internationally recognized. We are one of or we belong to the top 10 accounting bodies around the world. Your CA designation will be recognized here in Australia and also overseas. And I understand that at the moment we're not able to travel overseas, but yeah, I'm very confident that things will get better at some point, and then you will be able to as well experience some of these opportunities, some of the organizations that we work with, like Cassie mentioned before as well. There's secondments that you might be able to get access to in other parts of the world. So you can never be prepared enough, for these sort of things. And the CA program will give you the skills to thrive in those, in whatever role you are, whether you are here in Australia or in other country.
Absolutely, Darien, and I just absolutely loved it. And allow me to highlight why I love CA. You get the qualification, but let's say you decide to go back to your country, it's still applicable. It is truly international, and I can say it's can we say it's the largest peak body for accounting, Darien? Can we get away with that?
Not entirely sure, but what I would say
We can put a
is
small
that
disclaimer at the bottom.
we do have a very large number of members. I think currently we are just under 125,000, and with members that are working across the board in like public practice, government, and commerce organizations. So regardless of like where you would like to start your career, you will be able to find CAs in different industries and sectors.
Absolutely. And look, as an industry consultant, I can certainly say that I've seen a CA in practically almost all the industries that I've had connections in. Amber, to add to that, in Deloitte is holding a professional designation such as CA valued within your organisation, but more importantly, why?
Yeah, so Deloitte Australia is a CA firm, and what we mean by that is particularly within our audit and our tax business units, we do actually expect people to undergo that study to become CA qualified. And the main reason for that is we expect that top quality, service to our clients. So our clients want our people to be CA qualified so that they know they've gone through the training and that they're actually applying that, technical knowledge and understanding to the work that they're performing, so that the work is therefore high quality. We don't, however, expect people to start CA study before they join our firm. We fully fund and pay for them to undertake that study. We give them exam days off, study days off. We allow them that time and fully fund their study to start that CA. So a lot of graduates do start it in their first year.
Fantastic. And do you have mentors as well in that space?
Yeah, so we have our own internal CA program team, which is some of my colleagues in the talent team. We have a whole pathway and journey that they support them on, but then everyone's given a coach, mentor, and then they have a CA mentor, which is usually a partner as well.
Fantastic. And I would imagine it's similar with you, Cassie, with RSM. How does your organisation support employees with professional development, and particularly those that are wanting to undertake a professional designation such as CA?
Yeah, sure. So very similar approach to CA. It's definitely encouraged, particularly in your first, second year of coming on with us. It's exactly the same as Emma mentioned. We don't expect you to have that all ticked off before you can come on, I guess, to see if this is a place that you want to work. We totally support you through that journey. We typically with recruitment, we would ask questions around whether you've completed like the foundation kind of prerequisites and the likes, but nonetheless, if that's something that you haven't done, we still support you in that step as well. So that's in relation to CA, and again, we also have a CA specialist that works in the people and culture team that's there to guide you through your journey completely. It's also funded, textbook, study leave, the likes, much the same as you, Amber. We should have just talked about both of them one hit. But in terms of extra study, we also have basically a policy that supports that too. So whether that's things like postgraduate, the likes of masters, these kinds of things are typically made at partner discretion. So usually I'll just paint you, I guess, a hypothetical situation. I'd like to go and do a postgrad. I would basically approach as part of my professional development. I have that discussion with my manager or my partner, and basically that's incorporated into part of my ongoing development. Things again like study leave, all of that is accounted for, and in some cases, or a majority of cases too, the firm actually supports you through that. I guess the things to be aware of is once you usually complete these kinds of extra pieces of study, there is an expectation, if it's funded by the firm, that you would stay on board, basically, so that we can kind of be a part of the journey on an ongoing basis. But yeah, it's something we encourage our people. We want to make them the best employees they could possibly be, not just for us, but even for future opportunities. It's all these kinds of things are transferable, and if you're leaving our firm in good stead, that's I guess a good reflection on us too.
I just love that. I mean, it clearly shows, and for those that are tuning in, RSM and Deloitte, you can see that professional development is embedded into their culture. This is what good culture is all about. It's about developing your talent pool and making sure they stay with you on the journey to success. I just love it. Now, Darien, I think we already answered this, but we've got a question from Natalie. Darien, you stated that accreditation is recognised overseas. Could I ask if England is included in this?
Yes, so we
she wants
have.
To know if she goes back home,
yes.
whether she needs to do another accreditation or another test.
Well, people definitely have options. So I've seen and I have met CAs that are actually working overseas, including England. If you're probably looking at staying there permanently, you can work with one of our membership organizations that we partner with over there, and get the accreditation as well, like the local accreditation as well, if you need to.
Fantastic.
That's an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's absolutely. And for anyone else that wants to know more about the CA program, including the student initiatives, Darien has put up a link. Darien has also been kind enough to put up a link. Sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. To the links to both Deloitte and RSM graduate career links. Now, Darien, while we've got you, what do you look for in a graduate? Or what's preferred in a graduate in terms of both technical and soft skills? Because we know that CA program it does cover the technical side of things. When you become a CA, you've got the technical skills covered. What about the soft skills? Are both important? That both go hand in hand? Tell us a little bit more.
Yes, so the feedback that we receive from the employers that we work with, including like Amber and Cassie, yes, students receive a lot of the technical skills through their studies. Students again get a higher level of technical skills when they go through the CA program, but there is also a very important component that the students shouldn't forget about, and that's the soft skills, which are around the teamwork skills and leadership skills, communication skills, and for example, more recently when we ran our CA Achiever program, we introduced an emotional intelligence component, and which also touch based on like the self-awareness, empathy, and a couple of other things that we consider important as well when it comes down to employing a person, because you can imagine, like for example, when organizations are looking at offering a position to a graduate, they want to make sure that this person is going to join the organization and embrace the team, embrace the culture, and be part of, feel that they are part of the organization, so they can be successful within their teams as well.
Fantastic. Now, Amber, I'm going to move over to Amber now. What knowledge and skills do you believe are currently, or perhaps will be, in high demand post COVID-19? Are we seeing a trend?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think some of the ways that we've been recruiting differently, we're still looking for the same skills and attributes. We're just looking at them in a virtual sense instead. But similar what Darien mentioned, he did a bit of an emotional intelligence quiz. We do the same. We have a psychometric assessment online as well, so we used that previously. So some of the skills that we do think are, relevant now, but also in the future of work, is really around problem solving. So we don't know what the future's problems are going to be, but at Deloitte, when we're working with clients, we are trying to solve their most complex business problems. So working with businesses this year, their problem was COVID, and we wouldn't have known this time last year that was going to be the problem. So we need people to be adaptable. The problems are going to be different. They're going to have to come up with different solutions. So that problem solving, understanding, and adaptability, I think, will always be relevant. And the technical knowledge is still important. So that's why we do hire a lot of graduates as well, because they're studying each year. So they're having the most up-to-date, technical knowledge as well.
Fantastic. What's your take on this, Cassie?
Yeah.
Similar?
Yeah, similar. So I mean, the future landscape, it's forever changing. It's completely unpredictable. I don't even want to think about what we might be talking about this time next year. However, I think it's that need to think on your feet, be adaptable, move with the changes. So I guess your ability to adapt to change is also quite important. I guess from a skills perspective, the things we look at and I guess the thought around that, and I think it's probably from all recruiters as well, is there's certain things, you know, that that you can't teach, and there's certain things that you can. So I think sometimes candidates put a lot of I guess emphasis or stress on you know, ticking all the boxes, or I don't have this and I don't have that, so I need to go and get that kind of experience and the likes. But you know, skills are transferable. I think people skills are always important. We like to throw our grads straight into a client environment as soon as possible, get them face to face, and give them that kind of experience. So I guess those interpersonal skills do hold quite a lot of value, and I think they're always valuable too in a forever changing landscape. But yeah, and again, technical is super important. As you mentioned, Amber, grads are usually you know, they're the freshest in that sense, and so that's good. It's a very valuable skill to have. But I would put equal emphasis on both technical, if not more, personable skills.
Fantastic. And Darien, how important is, you know, personal brand? I mean, I know that's become a hot topic over the last few years, but has it become even more relevant these days in a COVID-19 world?
Well, I would say so. Because like these days, and given that we are moving everything to the virtual world, your social media, you know, plays an even more important role. Any blogs or any kind of online presence that you could have will probably add value to any, you know, to your profile and how employers will see you. You know, like I often wonder whether, you know, in the next few months, when candidates or when graduates go for interviews, whether one of the questions is going to be like, what do you do during this time? You know, what do you do in the months of isolation? And did you, you know, do a lot of like Zoom meetings? Did you do any networking? Did you attended some of these, like, for example, these panels, like the one that we are in today? And what do you do with that, you know, like with the information that you received or that you heard on those in those panels? So, you know, I think developing that social media presence and with a purpose, you know, like for example, if you think that you have good communication skills, then, you know, you need to highlight that sort of things and then validate those skills that you think are relevant to you in your interviews, and also when you start putting together your applications when you're applying for different graduate programs.
Fantastic. So you would say, if we were to say your one piece of advice to future graduates, what would that be? Validate transferable skills.
yes, that's right. And you know, don't be shy. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, use it. You know, be active, stay connected with organizations, find out what they are doing. You can even start, you know, doing some kind of online networking as well. Understand that for a lot of people, you might not be able to. You know, like sit down at a coffee shop, but you know, try to take some early steps into doing a little bit of online networking that can also help with finding out a little bit more about what's happening in industry, what's happening with within the accounting industry, what changes are happening, and how people are embracing those changes as well. I think that's quite important too.
Fantastic. Amber, your one piece of advice.
I did still see
Golden nugget.
A few questions on the chat around visa and eligibility and, you know, what the employer looks for. So I think my best piece of advice there is, if there is a company of interest to you, to, you know, have a look on their website. And if you apply and start the application process and put in which visa you're on, or, you know, what you studied at university, you will be notified if you're not eligible for a certain role. And, you know, if you go through to an interview, that you can then ask around visa sponsorship as well, because we do sponsor some people on visas, and we do also employ people that are on a student visa where they can only work 20 hours during the semester. So yeah, the best way forward there to know if you're eligible is to just apply. And through that application, you will be notified if you're not eligible. I think the piece there, we actually work with some defence clients, for example. So a hiring manager might be looking for someone to work on a defence client, and they actually need to be an Australian citizen. And that's not our requirement, that's the client's. So you'll never know exactly what they're looking for and where the team gap is. So yeah, just I would say apply, and then they'll notify you if you're not eligible. But yeah, number one, I'm kind of looping back to your question. Number one piece of advice to everyone, just be your true authentic self when you're going through a recruitment process. So, put your best qualities forward, be open and honest about the unique skills that you have, because often, that's what might make you stand out from other people.
Fantastic. I was just about to sort of repeat and say what you're really saying is be yourself, be honest, but more importantly, actually take the initiative to apply. Put your application in. I mean, a lot of people just assume that, we've got such a huge organization, why would they want to hire me? Well, they do, because you're a talented person. You just need to highlight that and validate that. And there's so many ways that we can actually do it. Cassie, before we finish off, what's your last piece of advice for future graduates?
Yeah, sure. I think, much the same. Back yourself, and be yourself. You can't lose out. And hey, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you were any less skilled or less valuable. It just wasn't the right fit, and someone else will snap you up in a heartbeat. I think the other thing that's quite easy to forget generally in recruitment processes, and I think that'd probably be my piece of advice if I have to choose one, and that is it's a two-way street. So often I know it can be a very intimidating process. It's a bit nerve-wracking. It's all new. It's foreign. However, just as much as you are answering questions and we're trying to find out information about you, interview us too. Ask about the culture, try and figure out about the firm, because at the end of the day, we want you to be able to fully immerse yourself in the experience and have the best employee experience that you could possibly have. So two-way street. Back yourself and know that you're valuable, and if it's not didn't work out the way you want, it will somewhere else.
Fantastic. I'm actually taking notes. Because I actually found these points very valuable. Look, as much as I would love to continue this conversation, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, I can't believe an hour has just passed by. It does bring us to an end for this session. I hope you've all enjoyed tuning in and have benefited from the conversation as I have. It has been absolutely wonderful to hear from our panelists and to get their insights into graduate recruitment. I do apologise that we haven't had an opportunity to have all the questions answered in the chat box. So please do reach out to myself, and if it's okay with you, with the panelists, perhaps they can reach out via social media and connect through LinkedIn. I would like to thank our guests for their time. It was an absolute privilege to hear from you all. To all our students, staff, academics, and everyone else that's joined, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And with that, thank you and farewell.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.